All right, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. World leaders have welcomed the agreement over the implementation of the first phase of the Gaza plan between Israel and Hamas. Israeli Defense Minister Katz has stated that Israel is awaiting and excited for the hostages to return. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has stated that he welcomes the agreement and would support its full implementation along with working on recovery and reconstruction in Gaza. He has urged all parties to establish a credible political path. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has appreciated the diplomatic efforts by all parties and has urged for the implementation of the deal without any delay. Additionally, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also welcomed the peace plan. He appreciated the leadership of Prime Minister Netanyahu and expressed hope for the release of hostages and peace in Gaza. To add to this, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has called on all parties to swiftly implement all agreed terms and to work towards lasting peace. Argentinian President Javier Milei has also stated that he would sign the candidacy of President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of his contribution towards this peace pact. New Zealand's Foreign Minister Winston Peters has stated that what we've seen is an essential step towards achieving lasting peace. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has also stated that this development offers hope after months of suffering and devastation. Meanwhile, Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi has stated that the agreement is an important step towards de-escalating the situation and achieving the two-state solution. With us on the broadcast is Professor Amin Saikal, Senior Fellow at S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies at Nanyang Technological University. He's joining us today from Canberra. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We've now witnessed a landmark moment with the first phase of this peace pact now coming into force. We're likely to see the hostage prisoner exchange take place very, very soon. Donald Trump too has stated that he'll be visiting the Middle East on Sunday, most likely. Do you think what we've just witnessed, this breakthrough we've just seen, paves the path for lasting peace?
It is a major breakthrough, and of course the first phase of Donald Trump's plan is relatively easy to implement because all sides have agreed for the release of the hostages and possibly in return for a number of Palestinian prisoners being freed from Israeli jails. But I think the problem will arise when they move into the second phase, because that would have to really involve the total withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and, of course, the disarming of Hamas. I don't think that there has been any agreement on that yet. Something that have to be negotiated, and then of course that will be a major sticking point in the process.
Absolutely, as you've mentioned, it's very likely that Hamas up until now not saying anything about disarmament could emerge as sticking point. Hamas has in the meantime accepted at a future reconstruction efforts could include a technocratic Palestinian leadership. But at the same time, it's also remained mum on this one point in Trump's proposed plan regarding an international board of peace being constituted that would oversee this entire procedure. What do you think will happen in negotiations next when the Trump administration is likely to bring this up?
Well, I think the International Peace Board will have to be established. I mean, President Trump has already said that he would like to chair it. And of course, he's also invited the former British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, to be on it. But then the question is, who else is going to be on it? Would there be a strong representation of the Palestinians on that board? And would there be also some of the Arab countries represented on that board? Then the question is, who is going to be actually in charge? I mean, this board is supposed to oversee the governance of Gaza, but who's going to be really, in practice, going to be running Gaza? Hamas has said that it will have to be a body of Palestinian technocrats. In other words, the authorities would have to be transferred to that body. and that body will be a legitimate, from Hamas's perspective, will be a legitimate body to run Gaza. But at the same time, the Palestinian Authority, which is in control or at least nominal control of the West Bank, has said that we would like to be in charge of governance of Gaza. But then there have been a lot of objections to the Palestinian Authority because Israel and, of course, some of its allies have argued that that body is not really capable of instituting governance in Gaza, and that body needs to be fully restructured and fully reformed. And how long that is really going to take, there are so many unanswered questions at this point.
Since you've referred to the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, I'd like to also ask you, what challenges do you foresee in reconciling these different Palestinian factions within the framework of this peace pact at large down the line?
Well, I mean, at this stage, Hamas is very much weakened. It's not as much of a force as it was before the 7th of October 2023. And Hamas has said that it will sort of give up governance or step aside altogether, but provided that there is a group of technocrats which will be the executive body and running Gaza. I think the expectation is, and the expectation on the part of the negotiators is that there will be reconciliation between Gaza and the West Bank, or the authorities in the West Bank, and that could place not immediately, but sort of down the line once the structure of the governance of Gaza is established. But of course, that structure again will also depend very much on how quickly Gaza is going to be reconstructed or rebuilt, and who's going to really take the necessary or accept the necessary cost of building Gaza. I mean, President Trump has said that the United States is going to be involved, but at the same time, he's not going to entirely fund the reconstruction of Gaza. And he would be really relying very much on some of the Arab countries, particularly oil-rich Arab countries, to come to his aid. Of course, some of the countries, like Qatar, would be willing to make contributions, but to what extent, for example, some of the other Arab countries will be in a position to do so, I think, again, that's another thing which remains to be seen.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us as we're shifting our focus away from the Middle East towards what's happening in the United States of America. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that most workers affected by the U.S. government shutdown will get back their pay. This comes as a White House memo earlier signaled that furloughed workers would not be guaranteed back pay after the shutdown. About 750,000 employees are currently foregoing their regular pay as the shutdown nears the end of its first week. Listen in to what Trump had to say.
Well, we're going to see most of them are going to get back pay, and we're going to try and make sure of that. But some of them are being hurt very badly by the Democrats, and they therefore won't qualify.
The U.S. Senate, I beg your pardon, earlier failed to advance funding bills to end the government shutdown for the sixth time. By a vote of 54 to 45, the Senate did not invoke the cloture on the motion to move forward on the House-passed Republican measure. Separately, the procedural vote on the Democratic measure fell short in a 47 to 52 party line vote. Still with us on the broadcast is Professor Amin Saikal. We're seeing a one-upmanship between the Republicans and Democrats in the United States, even as the shutdown is continuing. Federal workers have been furloughed. Trump has now assured that they will receive back pay, but if this issue is not resolved between the Democrats and the Republicans that are continuing their blame game, what is the impact that is likely to affect the U.S. economy very soon?
Well, there's no question that it would really affect the U.S. economy. And obviously, President Trump and the people around him, they are conscious of that. And that's why President Trump now, in a way, has retracted from his original position by saying that most of the people who've been laid off, they're going to be, their jobs are going to be given back to them, and also they're going to get paid for their jobs. I think both sides are very, very cautious in their approach to the current stalemate, because neither side, neither the Republicans nor the Democrats, would like to really take the blame for it. And as a result of that, I think one could expect that at some point there has to be some sort of compromise between the two sides. But the question is when that compromise is likely to arise. I mean, at the moment, also President Trump would like to really take advantage of the opportunity in order to get rid of some of the people who are in the federal payroll and replace them by some of Republican loyalists who are basically loyal to President Trump to be employed in those positions. But at the same time, he knows that the midterm election is coming next year. That is the midterm congressional elections, and therefore he cannot be too severe in his approach to the shutdown, and therefore he will have to really manage the situation in a way which is not really going to harm the chances of the re-election of many Republicans in the midterm elections next year.
So one final question. Secretary Bessent has in fact stated that what we're witnessing at the moment could have long-term consequences, that it could dent the U.S. economy, it could result in people not just receiving their salaries, but also result in reduced spending that would then have a snowball effect. In this context, could we then see the Federal Reserve stepping in and reducing interest rates to mitigate the impact?
Well, I mean, that is absolutely true. And I think that would really affect our overall economic situation in the United States. And also, it could reduce the level of economic activities, which is absolutely necessary in order to ensure that the cost of living it does not rise any more than it already has. And of course, some of that is as a result of the tariffs that President Trump has imposed. But the point is that the current shutdown, if it continues for too long, then it is going to have a serious economic implications for the United States.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX.